On Christmas Eve, I woke up in an empty house. The family group chat was gone from my phone. Instead of crying, I called the movers. 6 days later, they returned to darkness because every utility was in my name, and the doorbell camera recorded it all. They called the cops, accusing me of theft. I just showed them the binder. They thought I was the family bank, until they realized Hawaii was paid for with the money I'd sent them for 4 years. My name is Trinity Jacobs. I am 28 years old, and I am a data engineer at Northline Quant Systems. I lived, in Cedar Bluff, Ohio, in a 5-bedroom house that I now realize I never truly saw clearly until this morning. This morning was December 24th. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was not the normal, muffled quiet of a house full of sleeping people. It was a deep, structural silence, the kind of quiet that has weight, that presses against your eardrums. The house felt empty in the way a tooth socket feels after an extraction, a hollow, sensitive ache. I pushed off the covers. The air was cold, far colder than it should have been. The thermostat, which I kept programmed to a precise 68 degrees, must have been turned off. I walked out of my bedroom. The hallway was dark. No nightlights glowed from the other 4 bedrooms. No sliver of light from under my parents' door. No sound of my brother Bryce's video game, which he often played until 3 or 4 in the morning. In the kitchen, the silence was amplified by a single, sharp sound, the tick, tick, tick of the analog clock above the stove. It was the only thing moving in the entire house. The cold was worse here. It clung to the quartz countertops and radiated from the tile floor, seeping into the soles of my feet. This was Christmas Eve. By now, the oven should have been on for hours, the 8-pound ham slowly roasting. The kitchen should have been warm, smelling of cloves and brown sugar. My mother, Lorna, should have been bustling, complaining about the mess we were all about to make. My father, Victor, would be reading the paper, sipping the first of many cups of coffee. The oven light was off. The digital display was dark. I walked to the living room. The Christmas tree we had put up, the one I had paid for, was dark. The presents I had bought, wrapped, and placed underneath it 2 nights ago were gone. Not just mine, all of them. A different feeling, not yet panic but a sharp, cold confusion, began to crawl up my spine. "Mom," I called out. The house absorbed the sound instantly. The ticking clock was the only reply. "Dad?" Nothing. I went to their bedroom first. The door was open. The bed was made. Not just made, but stripped. The heavy comforter was gone. The sheets were flat. Hospital corner perfect, as if no one had slept there for days. I opened their closet, empty, every suitcase, every hanging garment, every shoe from the rack, gone. I moved faster. Bryce's room. He was 31 and this was his recovery space. It was sterile. His gaming rig was gone. The mountain of clothes on his chair was gone. His mattress was bare. Tessa's room. She was 23. Her vanity, usually a disaster of makeup and brushes, was wiped clean. Her laptop was gone. Her suitcases, the expensive matching set I'd bought her for graduation, were gone. Dylan's room, 21, the only one who sometimes seemed to see me. His community college textbooks were gone, his bass guitar missing from its stand. I ran to the front door. The coat closet was empty. The boots, the jackets, the scarves, all gone. I looked out the window into the driveway. Empty. My father's truck, my mother's SUV, Bryce's ridiculous, leased sports car that I knew for a fact he could not afford. All 3 were gone. My own sedan sat alone, a solitary island on the empty concrete. Back in the kitchen, I pulled open the refrigerator door. The light flickered on, illuminating empty glass shelves, a single jar of mustard, a box of baking soda, everything else, the gallons of milk, the eggs, the Christmas groceries I had bought and paid for, was gone. The cold was inside me now. I grabbed my phone from the counter. My hands were perfectly steady. I called Mom. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, You've reached Lorna. Leave a message. Her voice was cheerful, sing-song. I called Dad. Voicemail. This is Victor. You know what to do. Bryce. Voicemail. You've reached the future. Leave your data at the beep. Tessa. Voicemail. Hey, sorry I missed you. I'll text you back. Promise. Dylan. Voicemail. It's Dill. Leave it. 5 calls. 5 immediate transfers to voicemail. They hadn't just not answered. Their phones were off. All of them. I pulled up our family group chat. The Jacobs clan. It was the conduit for every request, every demand, every trinity. Can you pick up? That had defined my last 4 years. I typed, "Where is everyone? Is this a joke?" I pressed send. A red exclamation point appeared. A system message materialized at the bottom of the screen. You have been removed from this group. I stared at the words. You have been removed. This was not an emergency. This was not an accident. This was an act of precision, an extraction. They had packed, cleaned, and removed me from their digital life as efficiently as they had emptied the refrigerator. I stood there, the cold tile numbing my feet, the ticking clock measuring out the seconds of this new reality. The confusion was gone, replaced by a sudden, terrifying clarity. I had one more call to make. My uncle, my father's brother, Gordon. I pressed the contact. The phone rang once, twice. On the 3rd ring, he picked up. But it wasn't his voice I heard first. It was noise, a rush of wind, a faint screaming of seagulls, and the unmistakable, bright sound of clinking glasses, a toast. "Trinity!" Gordon's voice boomed, loud and slathered in holiday cheer. He sounded 3 drinks in. "Merry Christmas Eve, kiddo. We were just talking about you." The air in my lungs turned to ice. "Gordon, where are you?" "Hawaii," he yelled, and I heard him turn away from the phone. "She's on. Hey, Vic, Lorna, it's Trinity." I heard my mother's laugh in the background, light and carefree. "Hawaii?" I said. My voice was flat, devoid of any inflection. "Yeah, can you believe it? Your parents finally did it for their 35th anniversary. The whole family is here. It was a total surprise. Well, a surprise for me. Anyway." The blood drained from my face. Their 35th anniversary. That was in August. And then, I heard my sister, Tessa, her voice, high and clear, cutting through the sound of the ocean. She must have been right next to the phone. "Oh, just let her house sit, Uncle Gordy," she laughed. "She's good for it. Let Trinity water the plants. Clean up. It saves us the service fees." I ended the call. I did not drop the phone. I did not scream. I did not cry. I stood in the center of the cold, empty kitchen and looked up at the ceiling. I watched my own breath plume in the air. That small cloud of fog, that last wisp of warmth, represented the final dissolution of an illusion. The illusion that I was a daughter, a sister. I was not. I was a service. I was an ATM. I was the utility, and they had just cut the cord. The fog in my head, the panic, the cold, it all vanished. It was replaced by a single, solid line, a path forward. I walked to the kettle. I filled it with water and set it on the stove. I spooned dark roast coffee into the French press. I stood and watched the blue flame lick the bottom of the kettle. I waited for the water to boil. When it whistled, I poured the water, pressed the coffee, and poured myself a black cup. I sat at the kitchen table, the table I had bought. I opened my laptop, the laptop I had bought. The screen illuminated my face. I opened a new, blank spreadsheet. In cell A1 I typed, living room. In cell B1 I typed, 75-inch OLED television. In cell C1 I typed, serial number. In cell D1 I typed, purchase date. I took a sip of the hot, bitter coffee. My hands were rock solid. If they could leave me alone on Christmas Eve, I thought, then I could leave them alone. Forever. The spreadsheet glowed in the dark. Silent house. My coffee was getting cold. I was working on the kitchen tab, the smart refrigerator, the convection microwave. the high-end coffee machine that I now realized was the only thing they had left behind that I had paid for. No, wait, they had left the kettle. How generous. This systematic inventory was the only thing that made sense. It was a data problem. My family was a system, and I had been its primary power source. Now, that source was offline, and I was simply auditing the assets. It all started 4 years ago. It did not start with malice. It never does. It starts with need. My father, Victor, came home one Tuesday looking gray. He had worked for the same logistics firm for 20 years, climbing to a senior management position. That day, he was called into an office and told his position was being restructured. He was demoted. His salary was cut almost in half. That night, my mother called a family meeting, which was always code for a Trinity meeting. I was 24, fresh into my first high-paying job at Northline. I was still naive enough to believe that family was a reciprocal safety net. We sat at the kitchen table, the one I was sitting at now. Lorna, my mother, laid her hands flat on the wood. She had a way of looking persecuted by her own manicure. "Your father," she started, her voice hushed, "is going through a challenge. The company, they just do not value loyalty." Bryce, then 27, was staring at his phone, probably managing his fantasy football team. Tessa was texting, a rapid-fire click, click, click of her acrylic nails on the screen. Dylan was actually listening, his brow furrowed. "The point is," Lorna said, her eyes landing on me, "we are a family, and we have responsibilities. The mortgage is $2,650 a month. We cannot manage that on your father's new, temporary salary, not with the other expenses." "What other expenses?" I asked. "Tessa's tuition, of course," she said, as if I had asked what color the sky was. "And Bryce needs support while he gets his app off the ground." I looked at Bryce. His app was a theoretical platform for warehouse sharing that seemed to involve him using our garage as a storage unit for his old college furniture. "So," Lorna continued, leaning in, "we just need a little help, just to bridge the gap. We were thinking, if you could just cover $2,000 a month toward the mortgage, just for a little while, your father and I can handle the remaining $650, plus the utilities." $2,000. It was more than 70% of the mortgage. It was a staggering amount, but I was making good money. I lived at home, a phrase that suddenly felt like a contractual obligation. "Just temporarily, honey," she said, placing her warm hand over mine. "Just until Dad gets back on his feet. We are a family. We pull together." I looked at Victor. He was staring at the table, his shoulders slumped. He did not look like my father. He looked like a man defeated. "Okay," I said, "temporarily." That was 4 years ago. 48 months. I opened the calculator on my laptop. 48 times 2,000. $96,000. I had paid $96,000 into a 5-bedroom house in Cedar Bluff that my name was not on, a house I was currently sitting in, alone, on Christmas Eve. The temporary gap, it turned out, was permanent. The utilities my parents were supposed to cover quickly became my problem. 2. The electric bill, the gigabit internet Bryce required for his gaming, the water, the gas. They all landed in my inbox, forwarded from my mother's account with a note. "Can you get this? Trin? I am swamped." I became the default, the unspoken assumption, the structural support beam of the entire household, hidden behind drywall. My spreadsheet row count grew. Sofa, love seat, dining room table, all 8 chairs, the 75-inch television in the living room, the washer and dryer in the utility room, all purchased by me, on my credit cards, with my bonus checks, all meticulously documented. While I was funding the infrastructure, the rest of the family was living. Bryce, now 31, was a monument to arrested development. His warehouse sharing app had, predictably, imploded. It had not just failed, it had burned. He had convinced our parents to liquidate a small investment account to the tune of $62,000 to scale up. He scaled up into debt and then moved back into his old bedroom, which he rarely left. He was no longer an entrepreneur. He was a professional gamer, waiting, as he told our father, for an opportunity worthy of my skill set. His contribution to the household was a mountain of dishes in the sink and a staggering data usage bill. Tessa, now 23, was the golden child. She was attending Brooklyn Wells Private College, a ludicrously expensive liberal arts school in New York. Her tuition was $36,500 a year. My parents paid for it. They paid for her dorm. They paid for her flights home, first class. They paid for her study abroad in Florence, which appeared to be mostly a semester-long wine and cheese tour, based on her social media. When she was home, she treated the house like a hotel and me like the staff. The only one who even seemed to occupy the same moral universe was Dylan. At 21, he was in community college, working 30 hours a week at a hardware store. He was the only person, in 4 years, who had ever handed me cash. For groceries, Trin, he would mutter, pushing a crumpled $50 bill into my hand, embarrassed. It was a drop in the ocean, but it was the only drop from anyone else. I never saw a cent from Bryce. I never saw a cent from Tessa. I never saw a cent from my parents beyond their token $650 mortgage payment, which I was not even sure they were still making. I had long since taken over the full payment, just to protect my own credit, as I had co-signed the refinancing 3 years ago, another temporary measure. The silence was complete. No one else paid rent. No one else touched a bill. The house, the food, the comfort, the technology, it all ran on Trinity Jacobs. 6 months ago, I tried to change the terms of service. I had just received a promotion. My compensation had jumped significantly, and I saw a path to buying my own place, a small condo, maybe, a place where the thermostat stayed where I put it. I called another family meeting. This time, I was the one who spoke first. I need to talk about the financial arrangement here, I said, my voice clinical. I had charts. I had data. What arrangement? Lorna asked, putting down her wine glass. I am paying $2,000 a month for the mortgage, plus all utilities, plus all the groceries. It is not sustainable for me anymore. I want to start saving for my own life. The silence that followed was heavy, hostile. Trinity, that is incredibly selfish, Lorna said, her voice sharp. We are in a delicate time. It has been 4 years, Mom, I said. When is it not a delicate time? Bryce is 31. He does not contribute. Bryce needs time to recover, she snapped. He went through a professional trauma. You cannot put a price on his mental health. Tessa's education is the priority, Victor added, finally looking up from his paper. She is going to be the first in this family with a degree from a school like that. We cannot pull the rug out from under her. I looked at them, the two of them, allied. My contributions were infrastructure. Tessa's were an investment. My work was a utility. Bryce's was a delicate recovery. And what about me? I asked. My voice was quiet. My mother reached out, but this time she did not touch me. She gave me that soft, disappointed smile. Oh, honey, she said, you are just so much more independent. You are strong. You have your career. You have always been the one we can count on. They need us. You do not. That was it. That was the line. It was not a compliment. It was a life sentence. You are independent did not mean you are free. It meant you are responsible. It meant you are the mule, strong enough to carry the rest of us. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I just nodded. Okay, I said. I understand. I went back to my room. I did not cry. I opened my laptop. I created a new secure folder on my personal drive. I named it Receipts TJ. I went through my credit card statements for the past 4 years. I downloaded every PDF. I went to the appliance store's website and retrieved the warranties for the refrigerator, the washer, the dryer. I scanned the bill of sale for the living room furniture. I took a screenshot of the automated bank transfer for the mortgage. I gathered my data. I built my case. I did not know what I was building it for. I just knew that the ambiguity was over. I was not a partner. I was a resource. And resources, I knew from my job, can be depleted or they can be reallocated. I looked at my spreadsheet, now dozens of rows long. Every item was a shackle I had willingly paid for. The ringing of the phone on the counter made me jump. I looked at the screen. Unknown caller. I let it go to voicemail. My phone lit up with the notification, a new voicemail. I pressed play. It was not a voice. It was a pocket dial. But I could hear them. I heard the wind. I heard the faint strum of a ukulele. I heard my father laugh. A deep, full laugh I had not heard in our house in years. I heard Tessa shriek, "Put more sunscreen on me, Bryce!" They were happy. They were warm. They were together. They had left me here, in the cold and the dark, to water the plants. I closed the spreadsheet. The why was done. The audit of the past was complete. I opened a new document. It was time to start the project plan for the future. I closed the spreadsheet. The audit of the past was complete. The next phase was execution. It was 10 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve. The rest of the world was slowing down. Sinking into the holiday, I was just spooling up. My first problem was logistical. I needed an army, and I needed it on the single biggest holiday of the year. I Googled emergency movers Cedar Bluff holiday. The first 3 links were corporate chains with closed for Christmas banners on their sites. The fourth was a local company, Iron Arrow Movers. Their tagline was, "We run when others rest." It sounded less like a moving service and more like a private military contractor. Perfect. A man with a voice like gravel answered on the second ring. "Iron Arrow." "I need a move," I said, my voice clear and steady. "Tomorrow morning, December 25th. There was a heavy pause. "Ma'am, that's Christmas Day. That is triple time pay. Due up front." "I don't care about the rate," I said. "I care about the timeline. I need a truck and a 3-man crew at 8 a.m. sharp. It's a partial move. Large items, electronics, and appliances only. From a 5-bedroom house in Cedar Bluff to an apartment. Can you do it?" "Where's the destination?" he asked. I realized, in that second, I did not have one. "Local, Maple Row District. I will confirm the exact address by the end of the day. I can pay the full holiday deposit right now." Another pause, this one assessing. "You're serious?" "I am a data engineer at Northline," I said. "I do not joke about logistics." He gave a short, barking laugh. "Okay, data engineer. You'll have my best crew, 8 a.m. You'll get an invoice for the deposit in 5 minutes. If it's paid within the hour, you're on the books." The email hit my inbox before I was off the phone. I paid it without blinking. The amount was staggering. It did not matter. Step 1 was complete. I returned to my Receipts TJ folder. This was my legal shield. The spreadsheet was just the index. The folder was the arsenal. I went through it, line by line, matching digital proof to physical asset. The 75-inch OLED television in the living room. I had the receipt from Best Buy, the credit card statement showing the payment, and the PDF of the 5-year warranty I had registered in my name. The smart refrigerator, the stainless steel, French door model my mother just had to have, the one that told you when you were out of the milk that only I bought, purchased at Home Depot, protection plan in my name, my email address, the high-efficiency washer and dryer stack, the convection microwave, the whisper quiet dishwasher, the espresso machine, the one Tessa used twice and Bryce broke the milk frother on, which I had then fixed. Then, the core of the house's infrastructure, the gigabit router, and the entire smart home hub system, the brains that controlled the lights, the thermostat, and the security system, all linked to my account, my password. I moved to the furniture tab, the massive, L-shaped sectional sofa, the 10-person solid oak dining room table, the hand-knotted wool area rug, the entire surround sound system. Each item was cross-referenced in my spreadsheet. Invoice number, purchase date, serial number where available, and the last 4 digits of the credit card I used, my credit card. This was not a family home I was leaving. It was a showroom I had personally funded and curated. Next, I checked the utilities. This was the easiest and most critical. Peace. When my father had been demoted, the mortgage company had threatened to call the loan. We refinanced. That's what my parents called it. What it really meant was that I, with my high income and perfect credit, had to co-sign to get the loan approved. I had to put all the major utilities in my name to prove my financial stake and residency. Electric, water, gas, internet. All billed to Trinity Jacobs. All auto-paid from my primary checking account for the last 48 months. They had not just abandoned me, they had abandoned the person paying for their heat and electricity in Ohio in the middle of December. I needed to be absolutely certain of my legal footing. I could not afford a single misstep. My benefits package at Northline included an employee assistance program, which offered an on-call legal service. I dialed the number. A crisp voice answered, "Legal Direct. This is Martin. How can I assist you?" I explained the situation. I kept my voice flat, factual, devoid of emotion. I was presenting a case. I reside in a home where I am a co-signer on the mortgage, but not the primary name on the deed. Over the past 4 years, I have personally purchased numerous high-value mall fixture assets. This includes all major appliances, electronics, and most of the furniture. I have meticulous records, receipts, and credit card statements for every single item, all in my name. I am vacating the residence tomorrow. Am I legally entitled to take this property with me? Martin was quiet for a moment. "You are asking," he said slowly, "if you are permitted to take your own personal property, which you paid for and have definitive proof of purchase for, from a residence you are choosing to leave?" "Correct. I anticipate significant resistance when the other residents return. I expect them to claim these items are communal property or part of the household." "Ms. Jacobs," he said, and his voice was suddenly very clear and very firm. "Ohio is not a community property state, and even if it were, family is not a legally binding entity equivalent to a marriage. If you bought it, and it is not a fixture, meaning not permanently installed like a furnace or cabinetry, it is your chattel. It is your movable, personal property. A refrigerator you plug into a wall is not a fixture. A washer you connect with hoses is not a fixture. A television bolted to a wall mount is not a fixture. The mount might be, but the television is yours. If they try to stop you from taking your property, they would be committing the crime. My professional advice is to have all that documentation you mentioned printed and ready, all of it. What if they call the police and claim I am robbing the house? Then you calmly show the police your binder of receipts. They will immediately identify this as a civil matter, not a criminal one. They cannot and will not arrest you for taking your own television. They will tell your family to file a lawsuit in civil court if they wish to dispute it, which, based on what you've told me, they would summarily lose. Thank you, Martin. You've been very helpful. Good luck, Ms. Jacobs. I hung up. A civil matter. He was right, and I would be the most prepared party in that civil matter. I went to my home office. I opened the file, J Family Asset Ledger. I hit print. I printed the master spreadsheet. I printed every major receipt from the Receipts TJ folder. I printed the last 12 months of utility bills. I printed the bank statements showing 48 consecutive mortgage transfers. It created a stack of paper nearly 3 inches thick. I slid it all into a heavy-duty binder. Then I did it 2 more times. I 3-hole punched every page. I organized them with tabs. I created 3 identical binders, one for me, one for the police, should they be called, and one for the court, should it ever come to that. Now, I needed a destination. I needed a new base of operations. I pulled up my text messages and found my friend from college. Sarah. Hey, strangest question ever. You mentioned your mother's friend, Elaine, rents apartments in Maple Row. Is she by any chance working today? Sarah's reply was instant. Trinity? On Christmas Eve? What is wrong? Are you okay? I will explain later. I just need a place. Immediately. Elaine lives for this stuff. She loves me. She'll be baking. Let me call her. Stand by. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. An unknown number. Trinity, dear. This is Elaine. Sarah says you're in what she called a terrible bind. Elaine was a 70-year-old whirlwind who managed 3 buildings with an iron fist and a surprisingly warm heart. I am, Elaine, I said. My current living situation has become untenable. I need a 2-bedroom apartment as soon as possible. Today, if I can. Untenable, she repeated, tasting the word. That sounds wonderfully dramatic and final. I like it. I have a unit, 2-bedroom, top floor on Elmwood. The tenants just moved out last week. Cleaners finished yesterday. I was going to list it on January 2nd. You want it sight unseen? Yes, I have my employment verification from Northline. My credit is excellent. I can pay whatever deposit you need. I know who you are, dear. Sarah talks about the data genius. I'm at the building now, stocking the welcome basket. Meet me in 1 hour. Bring your laptop. If you can transfer the security deposit and 3 months' rent, I'll give you the keys today. 3 months' rent, plus the deposit. It was a massive single payment. I did the math in my head. The total was less than the $2,000 I'd been paying every single month for the privilege of funding my family's lives. I had been paying more than a luxury apartment lease just to be the house mule. I'll be there in 45 minutes, I said. I met Elaine. The apartment was perfect. It was bright, clean, with hardwood floors and a view of the park. It was quiet. It was empty. I sat on the floor, transferred the funds from my laptop, and she handed me 2 shiny new keys. Welcome home, dear, she said, patting my shoulder. Try to have a Merry Christmas. I drove back to the house in Cedar Bluff. It was dark now, nearly 7 p.m. The empty, cold house looked menacing in the twilight. But I was different. I was no longer a resident. I was a liquidator. I sat on the floor of my new, empty apartment for a moment, just to breathe. Then I got to work. I confirmed the new address with Iron Arrow Movers. Done. I went to the U.S. Postal Service website. Change of address. Effective immediately. Trinity Jacobs. Moving from Cedar Bluff to Maple Row. I paid the $1.10 verification fee. I activated tracking. Any mail sent to the old house, any bills, any letters, any checks, would now be forwarded directly to me. Then, the final, most important firewall, security. My family knew me. They knew my habits. They probably knew some of my passwords. I sat there for 2 solid hours in a state of flow, a systematic digital purge and reinforcement. Bank accounts, all passwords changed, 2-factor authentication enabled, linked only to my cell number. Work accounts, changed. Personal email, changed. I checked the recovery settings. My mother's email address was listed as a backup. I deleted it and added my work email instead. I checked the login history. Someone had attempted to access my account from an IP address in Hawaii 2 hours ago. They were probably checking my travel schedule, only to find I did not have one. All social media, locked down, passwords changed. Finally, I pulled up the websites for all 3 major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. I placed a full security freeze on my credit. No new accounts could be opened in my name. No one could leverage my credit score to buy a new car, apply for a new loan, or fund their next vacation. The Bank of Trinity was officially and permanently closed. I ordered new smart locks and 2 new cameras for my apartment to be delivered on December 26th. I would install them myself. I walked back into the Cedar Bluff house. It was a cold, dark tomb. But now, it was just a warehouse. I took out a pack of color-coded sticky notes. I walked from room to room, the Remove Xmas Eve checklist in my hand. Red for must take, high-value electronics, appliances, legal documents. Yellow for furniture, sofa, tables, rugs. Green for personal, my bedroom and office contents. I placed a small, colored dot on every item the movers were to take. I was not angry. I was not sad. I was efficient. I finished, went to my own room, and set my alarm for 6 a.m. Christmas Day was going to be the busiest workday of my year. My alarm went off at 6 a.m. on Christmas Day. The house was pitch black and freezing. I did not hit snooze. I got up, pulled on the work clothes I had laid out, and drank the last of the coffee. Cold, straight from the French press. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, the deep diesel rumble of a heavy truck vibrated through the driveway. I looked out the window. The words "Iron Arrow Movers" were painted on the side, bold and red. 3 men, all built like refrigerators themselves, hopped out, their breath pluming in the frigid air. I opened the front door. The lead mover, a man with a thick beard and a clipboard, nodded. "Ms. Jacobs?" "That's me," I said. "Name's Marco. You got the holiday crew. Where do we start?" I did not invite him in for coffee. I did not small talk about the weather. I handed him the color-coded checklist I had prepared, which matched the sticky notes I had placed on every item. "Red tags are priority 1, I said. "Electronics and appliances. Yellow tags are furniture. Green is my personal bedroom and office. Everything else stays. The inventory sheets are on the counter." He scanned the first page. He looked up at me, then around at the large, empty-feeling house. He did not ask a single question about why I was moving on Christmas morning. He was a professional, hired for a tactical operation. "You heard him. Boys," Marco yelled. "Red tags first. Let's move." It was the most beautiful, brutal, and efficient ballet I have ever witnessed. They started in the living room. The 75-inch television, the centerpiece of our family nights, was the first to go. One man brought in a specific padded case, another, with a practice zip of a power drill. Had it off the wall mount in under 30 seconds, they left the mount, just as the lawyer had advised. It was a fixture. The television was not. "Cables," Marco ordered. His crewman coiled the high-speed HDMI cables and the power cord, sealed them in a plastic bag, and taped it to the back of the unit. They slid the massive screen into the foam-lined box. Marco made a check on his inventory sheet. "Condition. Excellent. Sign here, ma'am." I signed. One item down. Next, the sound system, the subwoofer, the receiver, the 5 satellite speakers I had meticulously installed. Each one was disconnected, wrapped in protective plastic, and placed in a box labeled Fragile Audio. Then they attacked the kitchen. This was the part I had dreaded, and the part I craved, the appliances. They wheeled the heavy-duty dolly in. The sound of its rubber wheels echoed on the hardwood floor. They disconnected the water line to the smart refrigerator. It let out a final digitized sigh as its internal ice maker shut down. They drained the line into a bucket, then wrapped the entire 6-foot stainless steel unit in thick, padded blankets. It looked like a body bag. They strapped it to the dolly and wheeled it out the door. The space it left behind was shocking. A rectangle of clean floor surrounded by years of kitchen grime. It was the first time I realized how much space it had truly occupied, in every sense. One by one, they went down the line. The dishwasher was disconnected from the plumbing. The convection microwave was lifted off its shelf. The high-efficiency washer and dryer, the set I had bought after Bryce complained his clothes still felt damp, were unhooked and hauled away. The sound of the house changed with every item that left. The ambient hum I had lived with for 4 years, the hum of my machines, was disappearing. The silence was getting louder. Then they got to the coffee machine, the high-end espresso maker. "Red tag on this too?" Marco asked. "Yes," I said. I remembered the day I bought it. It was for my mother's birthday. "Oh, Trin, you shouldn't have," she had gushed, clapping her hands. "A real one." She used it for a week. After that, I was the only one who cleaned it, descaled it, and used it. I had called it her gift, but I had paid for it. The receipt in my binder proved it. I knew, instinctively, this would be one of the items they would contest. "1 second," I said. I pulled out my phone. I took a picture of the machine, and then a close-up, high-resolution photo of the serial number on the bottom. I emailed it to myself with the subject line, Asset verification, coffee maker. Okay, I said. It's ready. They wrapped it and took it. The last red tag was in the hallway closet, the router, the modem, and the smart home hub. This was the house's central nervous system. I had built it. It controlled the thermostat, the security cameras I had not yet removed, the lights, the locks. I unplugged the main Ethernet cable from the wall. The modem lights blinked orange, then red. The router's happy blue glow died. I went to the living room light switch. I flipped it. A dull mechanical click. Nothing happened. I smiled. The magic was gone. The house was just a box of wood and drywall again, reverting to its factory settings. The smart home was only as smart as its administrator, and the administrator was leaving. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the truck was mostly full. The living room was an empty cave. The kitchen was a shell. My own bedroom was the last to go. My bed, my dresser, my books. I worked alongside the crew, carrying the green-tagged boxes, ensuring my personal history was not left behind. I did one final sweep in the kitchen. I placed the thick binder I had labeled Household on the empty counter, inside the front cover. I had typed a single sheet of paper. It listed every utility account: electric, water, gas, internet. It listed the account numbers and the customer service phone numbers. At the bottom, I had written, "All utility services listed above are currently in the name of Trinity Jacobs. As of 3 p.m., December 25th, all services have been scheduled for disconnection. You will need to contact these companies immediately to establish new accounts in your own names. You will need to pass a credit check and pay any required deposits." I took the spare key, the one they had all used when they locked themselves out, and placed it on top of the binder, right under the aloe vera plant by the window. That had always been our emergency key spot. It felt right to leave this final, cold emergency notice in the same place. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, exactly as planned, I pulled the front door shut. The lock clicked. I did not look back. I got in my car and followed the Iron Arrow truck to Maple Row. Elaine was waiting for me outside the new building, holding a single key on a bright pink tag. The movers were already unloading, a river of my possessions flowing into the clean, bright apartment. "They look efficient," Elaine said, nodding at the crew. "They're the holiday specialists," I said. She handed me the key. "Here you are, dear. I ran your contract by my lawyer this morning. Everything is perfect." She patted my arm, her gaze sharp but kind. "Whatever it is you're running from, you'll be fine here. You're on the top floor. Good insulation." "Thank you, Elaine." I walked into my new apartment. It was chaos, but it was my chaos. Marco did a final walkthrough. I signed the final receipt and paid the holiday surcharge. It was worth every penny. "Merry Christmas, Ms. Jacobs," he said, tipping his beanie. "Merry Christmas, Marco." The truck pulled away, the door clicked shut, and I was, for the first time in my adult life, completely alone. I did not unpack the kitchen. I did not set up the bed. I sat on the floor, pulled out my laptop, and got to work. First, I logged into the electric company's website. I confirmed my new service was active at the Maple Row address. Then I went to my old account. Schedule a service stop. I selected the date. December 25th. Today, I selected the reason. Moving. The system confirmed the disconnection. One down. I logged into the gas company's portal. Same process. Schedule stop. December 25th. Reason. Moving. Confirmed. Water. Same. Internet. This one was the most satisfying. I canceled the gigabit plan at the Cedar Bluff address. They offered me a retention deal. I declined. I confirmed the cancellation. The house was now, officially, offline. My phone, my laptop, my bank accounts, my entire digital life was now tied to my new address in Maple Row. I was a new entity. I found the box labeled Office Priority. I opened it and pulled out my favorite mug. I placed it on the floor next to my laptop. I found a box of books and stacked a few by the wall. I found a framed photo of my college graduation. Just me, smiling, holding my diploma, and leaned it against the stack. Small, simple acts of possession. This is mine. This is my space. I went online. Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles. Schedule an appointment. Change of address on driver's license. The earliest slot was December 27th. Booked. Voter registration. I filled out the form. New address. New precinct. I updated my shipping address on every account I held. I updated my billing address with every bank. I systematically, carefully, and completely erased Trinity Jacobs of Cedar Bluff. By 9 p.m., I was exhausted. The apartment was still a maze of boxes, but the utilities were on. The internet was blazing fast. It was warm. I had not eaten all day. I found the box with the kettle, a single pot, and a box of spaghetti. I boiled water on my new stove. I ate pasta with butter and salt, straight from the pot, sitting on my new floor. I turned on the television. It was playing A Christmas Story. I watched it, not for the nostalgia, but for the noise. My phone was silent. No calls, no texts. They were still in the air. They were still in Hawaii. They had no idea their world was about to end. I found a notebook and a pen. I opened to the first blank page. I wrote today's date, December 25th. And underneath it, I wrote 3 words. From here, it begins. For 6 days. The world was quiet. My new apartment in Maple Row began to feel like a home. I had unpacked my books. My kitchen was organized. The new, high-speed internet I had installed myself was working perfectly. I was sitting on my new sofa, the old sofa, now in its new, rightful place, drinking tea and reviewing a work project. It was New Year's Eve. At 9:43 p.m., my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was not a call. It was not a text. It was a push notification from the Ring doorbell app, an app I had, very intentionally, not logged out of. The account was mine. After all. Motion detected at your front door. I tapped the alert. The live feed flooded my screen. The fisheye lens showed the dark porch of the Cedar Bluff house. It was illuminated by the headlights of 3 vehicles: my father's truck, my mother's SUV, and Bryce's car, all pulling into the driveway. I turned up the volume on my phone. The doors slammed. I saw them, tanned and tired, pulling suitcases from the trunks. They were laughing. I am never eating pineapple again. Tessa's voice chirped. She was wearing shorts, in Ohio, in December. Oh, it was wonderful, Lorna sighed. Victor, that was the best anniversary trip ever. Hawaii was great, Bryce grunted, pulling a golf bag from the truck. But I'm dying to get online. My guild has been blowing me up. They looked healthy, relaxed. They looked like they did not have a care in the world. I watched as my father, Victor, walked to the front door, jiggling his keys. Trinity probably locked the deadbolt, he muttered. He found the right key. He slid it into the lock and turned it. The door swung open. He stepped inside, reaching for the light switch just inside the frame. I watched him. He stopped. He had stepped into a void, a blackness as absolute as a cave. Through the phone's microphone, I heard the sharp, plastic click of the light switch. Nothing. Click, click. What the? Victor's voice. Victor, what is it? Lorna called from the driveway. Stop standing in the door. It's freezing. The power is out, he said. He stepped inside, disappearing into the dark. I heard my mother's annoyed sigh as she and the others dragged their luggage up the walk. The power? Trinity was supposed to handle the bills. Did a storm hit? Bryce, Victor called out, use your phone flashlight. A beam of light cut through the black. I could see them clustered in the entryway, their luggage puddled around their tanned ankles. Check the breaker, Victor ordered. Where is it? Bryce snapped. How do you not know where the breaker is? In the utility room. There was a long pause, muffled footsteps. Then, from deep inside the house, Bryce's voice, suddenly sharp and panicked. Dad, come here. What is it? The washer and dryer are gone. Another voice, Tessa, a high-pitched shriek that made my phone's speaker crackle. The TV! The television is gone! The couch! It's all gone! The scene devolved into chaos. The phone camera showed them running back out onto the porch, then back in, the beam of the flashlight cutting frantic, senseless patterns in the dark. And then, Lorna. Her voice was no longer relaxed from vacation. It was a razor. The refrigerator! She took the refrigerator. That witch. She took my refrigerator. A moment later, my phone, sitting on my new coffee table, began to vibrate violently. The screen lit up. Lorna, mobile. I let it ring. It rang, and then stopped. A second later, a voicemail notification appeared. Immediately, the phone began vibrating again. Victor, mobile. I let it ring. Voicemail. Bryce, mobile. Ring, voicemail. Tessa, mobile. Ring, voicemail. They were a symphony of panic. For 10 straight minutes, my phone did not stop vibrating. A new call began the second the previous one went to voicemail. I watched the notifications stack up. 12 missed calls. 13. 14. I leaned back. I took a sip of my tea. I decided to listen to one, the latest from Lorna. Trinity, you pick up this phone right now. I do not know what kind of sick joke this is. Our house, it has been emptied. Did we get robbed? Was it you? You did this. You unnatural, ungrateful. You call me back. You call me back this instant. I saved the message. The phone rang again, Lorna, mobile. This time, I answered. I hit the speakerphone button. There was frantic, shallow breathing on the other end. Hello? I said. My voice was calm, clear. Trinity? My mother's voice was a choked whisper of rage. Trinity, what did you do? I am not sure what you mean. Mom, did you enjoy Hawaii? A sound, half sob, half scream, tore from her. What did you do? Everything is gone. The furniture, the appliances, the television. You robbed us. You robbed your own family. I did not rob anyone, I said, my voice as cool as the kitchen tile in that empty house. I moved out. I took my things. Your things? Your things? Those were family things. That was the house. I am calling the police. I am calling the police. You are going to jail. Trinity, you are going to jail. The line went dead. I looked at my phone. I had been anticipating this. I walked over to my desk, where one of the 3 binders I had prepared was sitting, waiting. I put it by my front door. I did not have to wait long, perhaps 30 minutes, long enough for them to drive from Cedar Bluff to Maple Row. My apartment's intercom buzzed, a harsh, grating sound. I pressed the talk button. Yes? This is Officer Lark, Cedar Bluff Police Department. We need to speak with Ms. Trinity Jacobs. That is me. I will buzz you up. It is apartment 4B. I did not feel panic. I did not feel fear. I felt ready. This was just another meeting, a data review. I heard the elevator ding, and then heavy footsteps in the hall. And I heard other footsteps, frantic, lighter steps, and voices. She is in there. 4B, that is where she is. It was Tessa. She stole everything we own. Officer, you have to arrest her. Lorna, her voice vibrating with hysteria. I opened my door before they knocked. 2 police officers stood there, looking tired and wary. They were flanked by my entire family. They were a mess. Their tans looked strange and sickly under the harsh, fluorescent hallway light. My father's face was white with rage. My mother's eyes were red and swollen. Bryce looked like he was vibrating with anger, and Tessa was filming me with her phone. She's right there, Lorna shrieked, pointing at me. Thief! I looked past them, directly at the 2 officers. I did not raise my voice. Officers, good evening. Please come in. I stepped back. The 2 officers, Lark and Henley, stepped inside. As my family tried to surge in behind them, I put up a hand. "I am sorry," I said, my voice still calm. "You are not welcome here. You need to wait outside." "Trinity," my father boomed, his face turning purple. "You do not tell us—" "Officers," I said, cutting him off. "Please close the door. I do not feel safe with them." Officer Henley, the larger of the two, nodded. He put a firm hand on my father's chest and pushed him back into the hall. "Sir, you need to wait out here. This is an active investigation." "But that is my daughter." "Sir, wait, here." He closed the door. The sound was solid, final. The screaming and pounding from the hallway was immediate, but muffled. "Ma'am, I am Officer Lark," the first one said. He looked around my apartment, at the organized boxes, at the sofa, at the glowing television. "We have received a complaint of felony theft. Your mother, Lorna Jacobs, alleges that you have stolen over $50,000 worth of property from their home." "I understand," I said. I walked to the binder by the door. "I did not steal anything. I moved out, and I took my personal property." I held the binder out to him. "I anticipated this might be a point of confusion for them. I prepared this for you." Officer Lark took the binder. He looked at it, then at me. He opened it. His professional, wary expression dissolved. He was not looking at a jumble of papers. He was looking at a tabbed, organized, cross-referenced ledger. "What is this?" he asked. "That," I said, "is the asset ledger. It details every item I removed. The following tabs contain the corresponding original receipts, all in my name, the credit card statements showing the payments from my accounts, the warranty registration documents, all linked to my email and phone number, the serial numbers, which I photographed before the items were moved, and, in the final tab, you will find proof of 48 consecutive months of mortgage payments I made on that house, along with every utility bill for the past 4 years, all of which were also in my name." Officer Henley had moved to look over his partner's shoulder. He whistled, low. "Ma'am, this is thorough." Lark flipped a few pages. 75-inch television, receipt from Best Buy, Trinity Jacobs, smart refrigerator, Home Depot, Trinity Jacobs, washer, dryer, Lowe's, Trinity Jacobs. The pounding on the door grew louder. "What is happening in there? You have to arrest her. She left us in the dark. She cut the internet." That last part was Bryce, his voice cracking with adolescent fury. Officer Henley turned and yanked the door open. My family stumbled back. "I told you to wait by the elevator," he barked. "One more sound and I will cite all of you for interfering with an investigation. Go, now." They scrambled back, their faces a mixture of fear and indignation. He slammed the door again. He turned back to me. His voice was lower, more human. "Ms. Jacobs, based on this documentation, there is no crime here. This is definitive proof of purchase. This is your property. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one." Officer Lark nodded, closing the binder. "We cannot, and will not, be seizing any of your property. We are going to explain to them that this is a civil dispute and that they need to leave." He paused, then looked at me. "Are you safe here, Ms. Jacobs? Do you have any reason to believe they will harass you further?" "They left me alone in that house on Christmas Eve to go to Hawaii," I said, my voice flat. "They did not tell me they were going. I woke up to an empty house. This was my response to that." Lark nodded slowly, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. He pulled a small card from his breast pocket. "This is my card. It has my direct extension. If they pound on this door again, if they show up at your workplace, if they contact you in any way you deem threatening, you call this number. At that point, it ceases to be a civil matter and becomes harassment. Do you understand?" "I understand perfectly. Officer, thank you." "We will escort them from the building," he said. I opened the door for them. They stepped out into the hall. My family, now huddled by the elevators, surged forward. Are you arresting her? Lorna demanded. Where are our things? Ma'am, Officer Lark said, his voice loud and official. Your daughter has provided definitive documentation proving her ownership of every item she took. This is not a criminal matter. There will be no arrests. This is a civil dispute, and you will have to take it up in court if you choose. For now, you are trespassing. You all need to leave the building. Civil? Victor sputtered. She left us in the dark. But the internet, Bryce wailed. She cut the internet. Tell her she has to turn the internet back on. Sir, Officer Henley said, already steering Bryce toward the elevator. That is not a police matter. I watched them go. My father, speechless with rage. My sister, still filming, but now weeping. My brother, complaining about his video games to a cop. And my mother, who looked back at me one last time, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. I held her gaze. I did not smile. I did not frown. I just watched. The elevator doors closed. I stood in my own hallway, in my own apartment, for a long moment. The silence was profound. I stepped back inside. I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. The sound of the heavy, oiled metal sliding into the reinforced strike plate was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Thunk! It was the sound of a lock engaging. It was the sound of a roll ending. The dutiful daughter. The family bank. The designated responsible adult. She was locked out, left in the hallway. I was home. The pounding on my apartment door had ended, but the silence that followed was heavy and temporary. I knew it was not an ending. It was an intermission. My family had lost the tactical battle. They had not retrieved their property, and they had not gotten me arrested. Now, they would regroup and wage a campaign of psychological warfare. I had won the engagement. The war on my identity was next. It came 2 weeks later. I was in the frozen food aisle at a Kroger, trying to live a normal life. I was comparing the sodium content on 2 brands of frozen peas when I felt the air change. Trinity. The voice was Tessa's. I closed my eyes for one brief second. I had known this was inevitable. I could not hide in my apartment forever. I put the bag of peas in my cart and turned around. They were all there. My mother, Lorna, my father, Victor, Bryce, and Tessa, who was their chosen spokesperson. They had not ambushed me. They had cornered me. My mother looked frail. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow, and she was leaning on my father's arm as if for physical support. He just looked angry, his jaw set. Bryce looked bored, like he had been dragged there against his will. We need to talk, Tessa said. She stepped forward, physically blocking my cart. We have nothing to talk about, Tessa. Mom cries every single day because of you, she hissed, her voice low and sharp, designed to carry just to me. Do you even care? She is not eating. You left us. You left us in a cold, dark house with nothing. You left me in an empty house on Christmas Eve to go to Hawaii, I said, my voice just as quiet. You seem to be confusing the cause and the effect. That was for their anniversary, Tessa snapped. Their anniversary, I said, is in August. Tessa's face flushed. She hated when I used facts. That does not matter. We are your family, and you are supposed to take care of us. You are supposed to help. That is your duty. My gaze drifted from her face, past my mother's theatrical suffering, and landed on Bryce. He was leaning against their shopping cart, listlessly scrolling through his phone. I looked into their cart. It was not full of basics. It was not bags of rice, or beans, or ground beef. I saw bags of expensive kettle-cooked chips. I saw frozen pizzas with gourmet toppings, and right on top, I saw 2 6-packs of a local craft IPA, Mad Brewer's Hop Asylum. I lifted my hand and pointed. I did not say a word. I just pointed at the beer. Tessa stopped, confused. What? That, I said. That is the answer to your question. It is just beer. What is your problem? Bryce finally muttered, glaring at me. That is $60 worth of craft beer. Bryce, I said. My voice was no longer defensive. It was cold. You have money for that. You have money for gourmet pizza. But I am the one who received 15 hysterical voicemails about how you could not survive without the internet I was paying for. You do not have a money problem. You have a me problem. You have a priority problem. And you are angry because I am no longer funding it. You are twisting this, Lorna burst out, her voice watery and weak. We are in crisis. Bryce, he needs to unwind. That is not the point. That is the entire point, Mom, I said. I grabbed the handle of my cart and pushed it forward, forcing Tessa to step back. You do not need my help. You just need my money so you can continue to buy craft beer while ignoring your responsibilities. I am not your backup plan. I am not your emergency fund. And I am not having this conversation in the frozen food aisle. Trinity, please, my father said, his voice a low growl. Stop this. Just come home. We will figure this out. We will forget it ever happened. It was the most generous offer he could imagine. His forgiveness for my transgression. I will not be forgetting it, I said. And I am not coming home. I am done. You all need to learn to pay your own bills. I pushed my cart past them. You will regret this, Tessa yelled at my back, loud enough for the other shoppers to turn and look. You will be all alone. I hope all that furniture keeps you warm at night. I kept walking. I abandoned my cart at the front of the store and walked out, leaving them standing there under the fluorescent lights. The confrontation at the supermarket was just the beginning. Having failed the direct assault, they activated the network. My parents were the head of a system, and that system now viewed me as a virus. The immune response was swift. The phone calls started that night. Aunt Carol, my mother's sister. Trinity, honey, I just heard the most dreadful story. Your mother is absolutely sick. She is beside herself. Whatever this fight is, you need to apologize. A daughter's duty is to her mother, period. You cannot just abandon her like this. Aunt Carol, I said, did she tell you that abandonment involved her taking the entire family on a secret trip to Hawaii while I was at work? A small, flustered pause. Well, she said they needed a break, and you are so independent. You always have been. That is not the point. The point is your obligation. I hung up. Uncle Mark, my father's brother. Trinity, your father is a proud man. You have publicly humiliated him. You shut off their power? In the winter? That is just cruel. You have a good job. You are the one who is supposed to provide. That is what family does. Did he tell you I have paid over $96,000 toward their mortgage in the last 4 years? That is your contribution. You were living there. You do not nickel and dime your own parents. Trinity, you are being selfish, and you are tearing this family apart over a few appliances. I hung up. It was a flood. Cousins I had not spoken to in years, old family friends, my godmother, they all called, one after another, all reading from the same shared script. Duty, obligation, selfish, family, ungrateful, you will be alone. It was a full-court press of emotional blackmail, a coordinated attempt to shame me back into my designated role. After the 10th call, I changed my phone settings. I silenced all unknown numbers. I created a favorites list that contained my boss, Elaine, and 3 friends. Everyone else went straight to voicemail. The silence was profound. My life, when I was not deflecting my family's attempts at contact, became surprisingly clear. The energy I had poured into managing their endless rolling domestic and financial crises had nowhere to go. So, it went into my work at Northline Quant Systems. My code became cleaner. My projects were finished ahead of schedule. My focus was absolute. I was not being interrupted every 45 minutes by a text from Tessa about a fight with her boyfriend, or a demand from my mother to pick up dry cleaning. My boss, Kavita, called me into her office. Trinity, she said, looking at a screen, your performance metrics this quarter are, well, they are remarkable. You have cleared your backlog and your error rate is practically zero. What changed? I have fewer distractions at home. Kavita, I said. She smiled, a small, knowing smile. Well, keep it up. We are spinning up a new predictive modeling project for our credit division. It is high priority and high visibility. I want you to lead it. I stared at her. Lead it? Lead it. You have earned it. There is a title change and a significant pay bump involved. You interested? Yes, I said, my voice steady. Yes, I am. I walked out of that office with a new job title and a 10% raise. That Saturday, I took the money from my first new paycheck and did something I had not done since I graduated college. I went shopping, and I bought things exclusively for myself. I bought a new dress that I did not need, just because I liked the way it felt. I bought 3 hardcover books that had been on my wish list for months. I booked a weekend trip to a cabin in Hocking Hills, just for me, to go hiking and read by a fire. I logged into my bank account. I set up a new, high-yield savings account. I named it Home Fund. I scheduled a significant automatic transfer from every paycheck. I watched the first deposit land. It was the best I had felt in 4 years. The guilt did not vanish overnight. It lingered, like a low-grade fever. It would surface at night. My mother's crying face in the supermarket, Aunt Carol's voice saying a daughter's duty, but it felt different. It was no longer a crushing weight. It was like a layer of old, peeling paint, and underneath, I could feel something new and solid. It felt like self-respect. The family offensive, meantime, split into 2 distinct strategies. One night, a text message, an unknown number. Hey Trin, it's Dylan. I got your new number from Uncle Gordon. He told me to stay out of it. But I just wanted to say, I get it, why you did it. It was really messed up what they did. Mom and Dad they're freaking out. Bryce is actually trying to get a job at Best Buy. It's a total circus here. I just hope you are okay. I read the message 3 times, the single, solitary voice of reason, the only one who had ever handed me a crumpled 50 for groceries. I typed back a reply. I am okay. Dill, thank you for this. More than you know. You just focus on your classes. Get your degree. You are smart. Do not get pulled into their financial mess. Take care of yourself. I did not offer him money. I did not offer him a place to stay. I could not save him. It was the hardest boundary I had ever set. He replied, You too, seriously. The next day, the other strategy made itself known. A friend from high school sent me a screenshot. Tessa had not unblocked me, but she had made her profile public. It was her Instagram story, a blurry, teary-eyed selfie, captioned, It is so hard when you find out who your real family is. Some people would rather have money and furniture than a home. You cannot put a price on loyalty. Betrayal, family is everything. Except for some. I looked at the public performance, the manipulation, the desperate bid for sympathy from strangers. I did not get angry. I did not text her. I saved the screenshot. I put it in my Receipts TJ folder in a new subdirectory I labeled Evidence. Then I blocked her. The snow that had covered the ground on Christmas Day melted. The gray skies of January turned into the bright, cold blue of February. March came, and with it, the first signs of spring. I walked home from work, the air smelling of damp earth. My apartment in Maple Row was warm. My new books were on the shelf. My hiking boots were by the door, caked in mud from my weekend trip. It was quiet, not the cold, empty silence of the house in Cedar Bluff, but a warm, full silence, my silence. Winter was over. I was finally home. Spring in Ohio is a slow, muddy thaw. My life felt the same way. I was thriving in my new role at Northline. My home fund savings account was growing, and the quiet in my apartment was a healing balm. The calls from relatives had trickled to a stop, replaced by an icy silence. I knew this peace was just a tactical retreat on their part. I did not have to wait long for their next offensive. It arrived not via a phone call or a text, but through the mail. It was a thick, formal envelope, delivered via certified mail. I had to sign for it at the post office. I sat in my car in the parking lot and tore it open. The paper was heavy. Legal bond. At the top was the seal of the Court of Common Pleas. Civil Division. My parents, Victor and Lorna Jacobs, were suing me. I read the filing. They were petitioning the court for the return of their stolen property or financial restitution in the amount of $30,000. They were also claiming an additional sum for inflicted emotional distress and willful destruction of a family unit. $30,000. I did not feel anger or even surprise. I just felt a profound, weary sense of the inevitable. They had failed to shame me, so now they were trying to legally extort me. They had seen my binder of receipts. They knew I owned everything, and they were suing me anyway. They were betting I would rather pay them to go away than endure a public fight. They had bet wrong. My first call was to the legal service from my employee assistance program. They referred me to a civil litigator named Marin Cole. Marin's office was downtown, sleek and modern. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. She did not coddle me. She asked me to lay out the facts. I did not give her the emotional story. I gave her the data. I handed her the third, pristine binder I had kept in my file cabinet, the one I had labeled court. I have been advised this is a civil matter, not a criminal one, I said. This is the documentation I provided to the police on December 31st. Marin Cole opened the binder. She was silent for a full 5 minutes, her sharp gaze sweeping over the spreadsheets, the receipts, the bank statements. She turned a page, then another. A slow, thin smile spread across her face. "Ms. Jacobs," she said, finally looking up at me. "This is not a binder. This is a coffin. You have nailed it shut. So they do not have a case?" "A case?" She let out a short, dry laugh. "They have a tantrum. They are suing you for emotional distress after they abandoned you on Christmas. They are claiming theft on items for which you have indisputable proof of purchase. This is not just thin ice, Ms. Jacobs. This is a puddle of water. They are going to fall right in. What do we do?" "We do not settle," she said, her voice turning to steel. "We do not offer them a dime. We walk into that courtroom, we present this binder, and we let them publicly humiliate themselves. Then, we ask the judge to make them pay your legal fees for this frivolous action." The day of the hearing arrived on a rainy Tuesday in April. I walked into the courtroom, and for a second, my resolve wavered. They were all there, sitting in the front row of the gallery. My mother, Lorna, was dressed in a drab gray suit, a tissue clutched in her hand. My father, Victor, sat stiff as a board, staring straight ahead. Bryce and Tessa were beside them. Bryce was jiggling his knee, looking like he would rather be anywhere else. Tessa was glaring at me, her arms crossed. And at the end of the row, to my surprise, sat Dylan. He would not look at me. He just stared at his own hands, folded in his lap. "All rise," the bailiff said. The judge entered. She looked tired and overworked. She read the case name. "Jacobs versus Jacobs. Lord, give me strength," I heard her mutter under her breath. My father's lawyer, a cheap-looking man in a wrinkled suit, presented their case first. He was all emotion. He painted a picture of two loving parents, worried sick, who returned from a hard-earned vacation to find their home ransacked, their trust shattered, and their lives irreparably damaged by a cold, vindictive daughter. Then, my father was called to the stand. His lawyer lobbed him soft questions. "Mr. Jacobs, what was your relationship with your daughter like?" "We gave her everything," Victor said, his voice thick with self-righteousness. "We gave her a roof over her head. We gave her a loving family. And this is how she repays us, by stealing the very bed we sleep on, the television we watch as a family. And what do you believe you are owed, Mr. Jacobs?" "We are owed respect," he said, puffing up. "We are owed our property, but more than that, we are owed our family's dignity. She tore this family apart. A child has a sacred duty, a filial duty, to honor their parents. She abandoned her post." When he finished, my mother dabbed at her eyes with the tissue. It was a perfect performance. Then it was Marin's turn. "Mr. Jacobs," she said, walking toward the stand. "Let's talk about that roof over your head. For the past 48 months, how much did your daughter, Trinity, contribute to your monthly mortgage payment?" Victor stiffened. That was a family arrangement, a contribution. "How much, Mr. Jacobs?" $2,000, he said. The words choked. $2,000 a month for 48 months, Marin repeated, letting the numbers hang in the air. "That is $96,000. And how much did your son, Bryce, contribute in that same time period?" Bryce he was in a period of transition. "So 0? "Yes." "And your daughter, Tessa?" "She was in college." "So 0? "Yes." "So, this roof you provided was, in fact, almost entirely paid for by my client." "That is not true. We paid the other $650. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobs, for clarifying." Marin smiled and walked back to our table. She lifted the heavy binder. "Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence Exhibit A. It is a binder containing the original, itemized receipts for every single item my client removed from the house, all of which, you will find, are exclusively in the name of Trinity Jacobs: the television, the refrigerator, the washer, the dryer, the sofa, and yes, even the coffee maker." She placed the binder on the judge's bench with a heavy, final thud. The judge opened it. She flipped a page, then another. Her expression did not change. She looked up, over her glasses, at my father. "Mr. Jacobs, you are suing your daughter for stealing items that she has receipts for, proving she paid for them?" "But, Your Honor," Victor sputtered. It was a family understanding. The items were for the family." The judge held up a hand. "That is enough." She turned to my parents' lawyer. "Counselor, on what legal grounds are you claiming theft when the defendant is the documented owner of the property?" The lawyer shuffled his papers. "Your Honor, we believe a verbal contract existed." The judge cut him off. "You believe, or you have proof? Because what I have here is definitive proof of purchase. This is a civil court, not a family therapy session. I am not here to rule on filial duty or family understandings. I am here to rule on the law, and the law is clear. She owned the property." She looked at my parents. "As for your claim of emotional distress, I find it utterly without merit. You cannot abandon your child, who is also your primary financial support, to take a secret vacation and then sue her for the emotional distress you experienced when you faced the consequences of your own actions. This lawsuit is frivolous, it is vindictive, and it is a waste of this court's time." She banged her gavel. "Case dismissed. The plaintiffs, Mr. and Mrs. Jacobs, are ordered to pay all associated court costs, as well as the defendant's legal fees. Next case." It happened so fast, I could barely breathe. My mother let out a small, strangled gasp. Victor's face was chalk white. Marin Cole turned to me and gave me a single, crisp nod. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom. I did not look back. I was halfway to my car when my phone buzzed. It was a number I did not recognize, but I answered anyway. "Trinity?" It was my Uncle Gordon. His voice was heavy. "Hello, Gordon," I said. I just heard," he said. "My brother. He just called me, screaming. He lost. He has to pay you." "That's right." There was a long, heavy sigh on the other end. "Trin, I am so sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For not speaking up. In Hawaii, when I heard Tessa say that, about you house-sitting, I knew it was wrong. I did not want to ruin the vacation. Victor and Lorna. They were so happy, but it was wrong. I should have called you. I am ashamed. Kiddo, I truly am." It was the first and only apology I had ever received from anyone in that family. "Thank you, Gordon," I said, and I meant it. "That helps a little?" Listen, I do not want to stir the pot," he said. his voice dropping. But after they got back, Victor was complaining to me about money. He was furious that he had to set up new utility accounts and pay all those deposits. And he let something slip. I am on some of their bank alerts. I help them with their taxes. And I do not think this is right. I am going to forward you an email. You do what you want with it. The line clicked dead. A second later, a new email appeared in my inbox. It was a forward from my uncle. The original was a bank statement summary from my parents' joint checking account. I opened the PDF. I knew their account. It was the one I transferred the $2,000 into every month. I scanned the activity for December. I saw my transfer land on the 1st. And then I saw the outgoing transfers, one after another, airline charges, hotel deposits. And then, one big one, a wire transfer for $7,400 to a company called Aloha Travel Services, dated December 20th. They had paid for their entire luxury Hawaiian vacation, for all 5 of them, almost entirely with my money, the money I had paid for the mortgage. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was not just manipulation. This was not just taking me for granted. This was calculated, premeditated theft. I called Marin immediately. I am sending you an email. Marin, I think you need to see this. I forwarded her the statement. She was quiet as she reviewed it. This is grounds for a whole new lawsuit. Trinity, she said, her voice grim. This is conversion. Misappropriation of funds. You gave them money for a specific purpose, the mortgage, and they used it for a luxury vacation. It gets worse, I said. I was scrolling through my own credit card statements online, just to see if there were any other connections, and then I saw it, a charge from 1 year ago. Annual fee, supplementary card. What supplementary card? I whispered to myself. I clicked on the details. A credit card, under my primary account, had been issued in my mother's name, Lorna Jacobs. I had never applied for this card. I had never signed for it. I had never seen it. Marin, I said, my voice shaking for the first time. They did not just take my mortgage money. My mother, she has a credit card in her name, tied to my account. I never authorized it. The line was dead silent. Marin Cole's amused, professional tone was gone. Okay, Trinity, she said, and her voice was a razor. This changes everything. This is no longer a civil dispute. This is felony identity theft. You need to file a police report right now. We need to lock all your hard inquiries, and we need to report this as fraud to the card company immediately. I stood in the parking garage, the rain lashing against the concrete. I looked at the bank statement on my phone. I looked at the credit card I had just discovered. The whole ugly, rotten system was laid bare. No, I said. No, Trinity, this is a crime. I know, I said. I took a deep, steadying breath, the cold, damp air filling my lungs. I do not want to go to the police, not yet. I want to do this my way, clean, by the book. Let's start with the credit card company. Let's file the fraud dispute. Let's see what their internal investigation uncovers. I was not just defending anymore. I was not just building a case to protect myself. I was building a case to dismantle them, and I was going to use the very systems they had exploited to do it. The fraud investigation I had initiated with the credit card company was a slow-moving, subterranean machine. It was a process, humming along in the background of my new life. While Marin handled the legal mechanics, I focused on the living. The courtroom victory had been a definitive end, but my promotion to lead data engineer at Northline Quant Systems was a definitive beginning. It was not just a new title on my email signature, it was a significant pay increase, a validation that cemented my professional worth. The project I was assigned to lead, a complex predictive model for our credit risk division, required deep, uninterrupted focus. For the first time in my adult life, I had it. There were no emergencies blowing up my phone every 2 hours. There were no demands, no emotional crises to manage, no one else's fires to put out. It was just me and the data. My performance soared. The silence in my Maple Row apartment, which had at first felt like a sterile vacuum, began to fill up, but it was not filling with noise. It was filling with life. My life. I realized, in the long, quiet evenings of spring, that my old social circle had been entirely composed of my family and family friends, people who, when forced to choose a side, had defaulted to the status quo. They had vanished. The quiet of my apartment could, I knew, easily curl into loneliness. So, I did something I had not done since college. I intentionally sought out new people. I joined a book club. We met on Wednesday nights at a noisy brewery downtown. We argued about sci-fi themes and character motivations. They were analysts, nurses, and graphic designers. They knew me only as Trinity, the woman who had strong opinions about unreliable narrators. No one asked me about my parents. No one cried on my shoulder. No one asked me for money. I also signed up for a photography class at the Community Arts Center. I had always wanted to, but my family had dismissed it as a waste of time and money. "Your phone has a camera, Trin," Tessa had said, rolling her eyes. But I wanted to learn about light, about composition. I bought a real camera, a used one, with my new salary. I spent my weekends learning the difference between aperture and shutter speed. My apartment began to look less like a safe house and more like a home. The transformation was slow, intentional. I bought plants, a large fiddle-leaf fig tree for the corner, which I fussed over, pothos vines that I hung from my bookshelves. I replaced the cheap plastic blinds the apartment came with, installing heavy cream-colored linen curtains that made the light in the living room soft and warm. I bought a candle that smelled like cedar and tobacco, a scent that was woody and clean, a stark contrast to the cloyingly sweet apple cinnamon and holiday cookie scents my mother had always burned, which I now realized just smelled like artificial obligation. My apartment was minimalist, but every object in it was chosen. Every plant, every book, every curtain rod, every item had been paid for, by me, for me, and it had only been paid for once. The photography class gave me an assignment, an excuse for something I had long wanted to do. In late May, I took a weekend and drove south to Hocking Hills. I rented a tiny cabin, the kind with a small porch and a fire pit. For 2 days, I hiked, I climbed the rock steps at Old Man's Cave, felt the cool mist from Ash Cave, and scrambled over the boulders at Rock House. I took hundreds of photographs. Most of them were terrible, blurry, overexposed, or just plain boring. But on the second evening, I was at Cedar Falls. The sun was setting, and the light cut through the trees at a sharp angle, illuminating the mist rising from the waterfall. I sat for an hour, adjusting the settings on my camera. I captured one image. The water looked like silk, and the light looked like something you could hold. When I got home and downloaded it onto my laptop, I stared at it. It was beautiful. It was the first piece of art I had ever created, and I had made it for no one but myself. I felt a quiet, profound sense of pride. That night, I did my monthly budget review. I logged into my bank account. My new home fund savings account, the one I had opened just a few months prior, was growing at a shocking rate. I did the math. My new, higher salary was one factor, but the main driver was the absence of the financial drain. The $2,000 monthly mortgage payment, the $400 in utilities, the hundreds of dollars in groceries for 5 people, the emergency $500 for Bryce, the please Trin, just this once, $200 for Tessa. All of it gone. My money was staying with me. It was not leaking out of a dozen holes punched in the bottom of a bucket by my family's demands. It was accumulating. It was solidifying. It was waiting for my instructions. I watched the balance grow, and it felt like the most tangible security I had ever known. The old world, the world from Cedar Bluff, still tried to break in, but the walls were stronger now. A text message appeared one night from an unknown number. "Hey Trin, it's Dill." My fingers tensed. It was the first contact I had had from any of them, besides the lawsuit, since Dylan's message of support. I got my acceptance letter. The text read, I am transferring to Ohio State in the fall, starting the engineering program. I felt a genuine, sharp surge of pride for him. He had done it. He was getting out. The old Trinity, the provider, the default, would have immediately responded, "That is amazing. Congratulations. Let me send you money for books. Do you need help with your dorm deposit?" The impulse was still there, a ghost in my muscles. I held the phone. I thought about the boundary, the hardest boundary. I typed back, "Dill, that is incredible news. I am so proud of you. You earned this." I hit send. I did not offer him $1. I did not offer him help. I could not be his new safety net, or I would simply be trading one set of obligations for another. He had to do it himself. A minute later, a reply. "Thanks, Trin, seriously, it means a lot." The boundary held. The next echo from the old world was, predictably, secondhand. A friend from my book club, who apparently knew a friend of Tessa's, sent me a screenshot with a message. "This is your sister, right? Ouch." It was Tessa's Instagram profile. It was no longer private. She had posted a new photo, a selfie of her looking miserable, holding a textbook in front of the Cedar Bluff Community College sign. The caption, "When your own sister would rather have a new couch than see you get an education," had to transfer from my dream school to, "This betrayed family. First guess not, for everyone thanks for nothing." I looked at the public performance, the blatant lie, the calculated bid for sympathy. A year ago, this would have destroyed me. The public shaming would have sent me into a spiral of guilt, and I probably would have called her, offering to pay her tuition again. I looked at it, this digital cry for attention, and I felt nothing. It was just data. It was just noise from a system that was no longer my problem. I did not reply to my friend. I did not respond to Tessa. I just deleted the message. The final attempt was the most brazen. An email appeared in my inbox. The sender, Bryce Jacobs 88@gmail.com. The subject, job. "Hey Trinity, long time no see. Listen, I know things are weird, but Dad is a total wreck and Mom is always crying. Things are rough here. Anyway, I heard from Aunt Carol that you got a huge promotion. Congrats. I was wondering if you could get me an interview at Northline. I'm really good with computers and gaming. I could probably do whatever you do. Let me know." I read the message twice. Good with computers. He, the man who had burned through $62,000 of our parents' money on a fantasy app, wanted me to stake my professional reputation, my new, hard-won, lead engineer reputation, on him. He was not just asking for a handout. He was asking me to hand over my career. I did not reply. I did not get angry. I did not even archive it. I just clicked the delete button. The message vanished. Summer settled over Ohio. I had been in my new apartment for 6 months. I was standing on my small balcony one evening, watering my geraniums. The sun was a low, warm glow over the park. I could hear the distant sound of a baseball game, the laughter of people on the sidewalk, the faint hum of the city. My apartment was quiet. I stood there, holding the watering can, and I realized I was not lonely. I was simply alone. And it was not an absence. It was a presence. It was the sound of my own life, happening without interruption. The feeling of being silent, but not lonely, was the new foundation. The next Saturday, I was coming back from the farmer's market, my canvas bag full of fresh tomatoes and bread. Elaine, my landlady, was in the lobby, pinning a notice to the bulletin board. "Trinity, dear," she said, smiling. She always looked pleased to see me. "You look settled, happy." "I am, Elaine. I really am." "You know," she said, tapping a piece of paper in her hand, "I was just thinking of you. You are a smart woman. You understand data, numbers. Renting is fine, but equity is better." She held out a sales flyer. "I saw this listing, a little townhouse over in Lakefield. It is not big, just 1 bedroom, but it has a real backyard, a patio, enough room for a dog and some string lights, you know?" I took the flyer. I looked at the picture. It was a small, neat brick house, tucked on a quiet street. It had a front door painted a cheerful, bright blue. Lakefield. I knew the neighborhood. It was quiet, stable. I looked at the asking price. I looked at the estimated mortgage payment. And I thought of the balance in my home fund account. The mortgage was less than what I had been paying to rent a room in my parents' house. And the down payment. I had it. I had more than enough for 20% down. I could buy it. I could buy my own house. I looked up from the flyer. Elaine was watching me, a small, knowing smile on her face. "Just something to think about," she said. I smiled back. The piece of paper felt heavy in my hand. Heavy with possibility. The fear, the guilt, the old obligations. They were all gone. All that was left was the data. And the data was good. "Thank you, Elaine," I said, my voice steady and sure. "I am ready." The call from Maren Cole came in early September. I was at my desk at Northline, deep in a regression analysis. I saw her name and stepped into a quiet conference room. "It is done," she said. There was a thin, predatory smile in her voice. "The credit card company's fraud division has concluded their investigation." I stood by the window, watching the traffic 6 floors below. And they have concluded, unequivocally, that you were the victim of fraud. They compared the signature on the paper application for the supplementary card, the one issued to Lorna Jacobs, against your driver's license, your passport, and the signatures on file for your primary account. It was, and I quote their final report, "a non-matching signature, indicative of fraudulent activity." My mother had forged my name. It was not a mistake. It was not an understanding. It was a crime. "So, what happens now?" I asked. My voice was perfectly calm. "What happens," Maren said, "is that they are clearing your account of every charge, every interest penalty, and every late fee associated with that supplementary card, effective immediately. Your legal responsibility for that debt has been nullified. They are also removing all negative reporting associated with it from all 3 credit bureaus." A week later, I checked my bank account. A deposit had landed. A refund for $628 in fees and interest I had apparently paid over the last year without even knowing it. The following Monday, I checked my credit score. It had jumped 42 points. The shadow that had been dragging my file down was gone. My record was clean. "Speaking of financial records," I said to Maren on our next call, "I have been receiving notices from the mortgage company for the Cedar Bluff house. They are, of course, addressed to me as co-signer. It is now a notice of intent to accelerate." "They are delinquent," Maren said. It was not a question. "They are 90 days past due," I confirmed. "They have not made a single payment since I left. The bank has officially begun foreclosure proceedings." "What do you want to do?" she asked. The old Trinity would have panicked. She would have seen her name on that loan and felt the crushing weight of responsibility. She would have tried to pay it, to fix it, to save them. I looked around the conference room. "Nothing," I said. "I am not intervening. My name is on the loan, which I know is not ideal, but the fraud investigation clearing my name has already counteracted the credit damage. I will let the legal process play out. They are the primary residents. This is their responsibility." "Good," Maren said. "Do not engage. This is the hole they dug. Let them find their own way out." The foreclosure notice must have hit their mailbox with the finality of a gavel, because that night, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, a burner. I answered, wary. "Trinity, honey?" The voice was thin, sweet, and sticky. It was Lorna. I had not heard her voice since the courtroom. "What do you want, Mom?" I just think this has all gone too far," she said, her voice catching with a manufactured sob. This fighting, it is not healthy. It is not us. I want to make peace. Your father, he misses you terribly. We all do." I waited. The ask was hovering, waiting to land. "I was thinking," she continued, her voice brightening with false hope, "maybe we could just call a truce. And, as a sign of good faith, maybe you could just bring back the washing machine? And perhaps the good coffee maker? It is so terribly hard on me. Honey, going to the laundromat, and your father cannot stand that instant coffee. We could start over, like a real family. I was speechless. The audacity of it was a physical force. She had forged my name. She had sued me for $30,000. She had lost. And now she was not offering an apology. She was offering a truce in exchange for the return of appliances. She wanted me to make her life more convenient. I did not yell. I did not argue. I just remained silent. Trinity, are you there, honey? I ended the call. She called back immediately. I silenced it. She left a voicemail, a long, weeping, manipulative message about her birthday, the coffee maker, and how a family is supposed to be. I saved the voicemail. I took a screenshot of the call log. I emailed them both to Marin with a single-line message. For the file. Marin's reply was swift. This is harassment. They are contacting you to extract assets after a judge has ruled against them. I am filing this with the court as a supplementary record. If they show up at your apartment, or God forbid, at your office, we file for a restraining order. That is the final move. We are holding it in reserve. While their foundation was cracking, I was pouring a new one. I had taken the sales flyer from Elaine. I had driven to Lakefield. I had visited the small, one-bedroom brick townhouse. It was perfect. The living space was open and bright. The kitchen was small, but modern, and the backyard was a small, private, fenced-in square of grass, just big enough for a patio table and a garden. I could see exactly where I would hang the string lights. I had my new salary. I had my home fund account, which was now impressively large. My credit was restored, pristine. My pre-approval from the bank was instantaneous. I put in an offer. They accepted it. The closing was on a bright, crisp afternoon in late September. I sat at a long, polished table in a sterile legal office, a place that now felt strangely comfortable to me. I signed my name, over and over and over. Trinity Jacobs, Trinity Jacobs. But this time, it was not a co-signature on a loan to save someone else. It was not a fraudulent signature on a card I did not know existed. It was my name, on my house. The closing lawyer smiled and slid a small manila envelope across the table. Congratulations, Ms. Jacobs. Inside was a single, shiny brass key. It was warm from his hand. I closed my fist around it. It felt solid, heavy, and real. It felt like an answer to a question I had been asking for 4 years. I spent the first night in my new, empty house, eating pizza on the hardwood floor. My phone, which had been quiet for weeks, suddenly lit up. It was Uncle Gordon. Well, he said, and his voice was heavy. It is done. What is done, Gordon? I asked, looking around at the bare walls of my own living room. They moved out of the Cedar Bluff house. The bank gave them a cash-for-keys deal, just to get them out before the full foreclosure auction. So, it was over. The house I had poured $96,000 into was gone. Back to the bank. They are not in a good place. Trin, he continued, and I could hear the discomfort in his voice. Where are they? They got a 2-bedroom rental apartment, over by the highway, in that new complex. It is small. Tessa is sleeping on the sofa in the living room. Bryce and Dylan are sharing a room. I pictured it, the chaos, the resentment. Bryce, at 31 years old, sharing a room with his 21-year-old brother. Tessa, the private college princess, relegated to a sofa. The proximity, the noise, the inevitable arguments over the internet bandwidth. It was a pressure cooker of their own making. That is the natural consequence of their actions. Gordon, I said. My voice was not cold. It was just factual. I know. He sighed. I know. Listen. I did not want to stir the pot, but I found what I was looking for. That Hawaii trip. I have the full itemized expense breakdown from their account. The one you were paying into. I am sending it to you. Not to make you angry, just for your records. So you know you did the right thing." The line clicked dead. A moment later, an email came through. It was a PDF. It was not just a bank statement. It was a full itinerary from the travel agent. I saw it all. The first-class flights for Tessa, the golf club, baggage fee for Bryce, the spa and champagne package for Lorna, all itemized, all paid for from the joint account I had been dutifully filling for the mortgage. I put my phone face down on the new hardwood floor. It did not matter. It was just more data, more proof for a case that was already closed. The fall passed in a blur of painting walls, a soft, warm gray, and assembling furniture that I had bought for this house. Suddenly it was December again, a full year since I had woken up in that cold, empty house. I was in my own living room, in my own house. The silence was complete, but it was not empty. It was full of peace. I bought a Christmas tree, a small, living one in a heavy ceramic pot. I did not want a big, cut tree that would just die. I wanted something that would last. I went to a small boutique and bought exactly 3 ornaments. I hung the first one, a simple clear glass ball that caught the light. Freedom. I hung the second one, a heavy brass key, a replica of the one to my front door. Boundaries. I hung the third one, a small, white ceramic dove. Peace. I sat on my new sofa, in the quiet, looking at my little tree. It was perfect. I was safe. And I was, finally, ready for whatever came next. On the night of December 24th, 1 year later, I woke up. I did not wake up to a cold, structural silence. I did not wake up to the sharp, solitary tick of a clock in an empty kitchen. I woke up in my own bed, in my own house in Lakefield. I woke up because the furnace kicked on, a soft, warm sigh of air. My bedroom was not dark. It was filled with a gentle, ambient glow. Through my window, I could see the string of tiny white lights reflecting off the surface of the small, frozen lake out back. From the kitchen, I could smell the faint, lingering scent of the cinnamon and clove cider I had mulled earlier, and the rich, dark aroma of the coffee I had programmed to brew at precisely 7 in the morning. I lay there for a moment, absorbing the profound, layered difference. A year ago, I had woken up an asset, an abandoned utility. Today, I woke up a person. I had been in my townhouse for 3 months. It was my sanctuary, my fortress. My name was the only name on the deed, the only name on the mortgage, the only name on every single bill. The small potted Christmas tree in my living room was decorated with my 3 ornaments: freedom, boundaries, peace. I smiled, stretching in the warm bed, and was about to get up. And then my doorbell rang. The sound was a digital, cheerful chime, but it sliced through the morning peace like a razor. My heart did not pound with fear. It seized with a cold, weary annoyance. I got out of bed. Pulling on my robe, I walked to the small tablet by my front door, the one that controlled my new security system. I tapped the screen. The live feed from my front porch bloomed into view, and the breath I was holding escaped in a single, disbelieving huff. They were all there. Victor, Lorna, Bryce, Tessa, Dylan. They stood huddled on my small welcome mat, their shoulders hunched against the frigid morning air. They looked thin and gray and angry. They were dressed in cheap coats. But that was not the part that made my blood run cold. Behind them, standing on the walkway, were 2 local police officers. My family, on my doorstep, on Christmas Eve, with the police. They had done it. They had actually done it. They had escalated their delusional campaign of harassment to its logical, insane conclusion. They had brought the authorities to my home, intending, I was sure, to force some kind of confrontation, to paint me as the villain, to use the officers as leverage to get something. I stared at the screen, at my mother, Lorna, whispering to one of the officers and pointing at my door, at Tessa, filming the scene with her phone. I took one deep, steadying breath. I walked to my front hall closet. I opened the small fireproof safe inside. I took out a single, folded legal document. I walked to the front door. I turned the deadbolt. I opened it. The blast of cold air hit my face. They all looked at me. My mother's expression of practiced victimhood hardened into triumph when she saw me. "Trinity," Lorna said, her voice loud, pitched for the benefit of the officers. "Thank God. We were so worried. We just want to talk. We are a family." "You are trespassing," I said. My voice was low, flat. "It is not trespassing," she cried, the tears instantly welling. "It is Christmas Eve. We just want to celebrate, like we used to. Victor, tell her." My father stepped forward, his face a mask of aggrieved dignity. "Trinity, this has gone on long enough. Your mother is right. We are here to make peace. Just give us a few things, so we can have a proper holiday. The good china, the silverware, maybe the television. We can talk about the rest later." They were negotiating. They were actually truly standing on my property, in front of police officers, trying to barter for my possessions. I looked past them, ignoring their faces. I looked directly at the two officers. "Officers," I said, my voice projecting clearly, "please come inside, out of the cold." They looked surprised. "Ma'am?" "Please," I said, "you and I need to have a conversation. My family," I said the word with acid, "needs to wait out here. They are not permitted in my home." "You cannot do that," Tessa shrieked. "We called them. They are with us." "Officers," I said again, holding the door open. "Come in." The two officers, sensing the situation was not what they had been told, exchanged a look. They nodded, stepping past my stunned family onto my clean entryway floor. "Ma'am, we received a call from a Ms. Lorna Jacobs," the older one began, "requesting a civil standby." I closed the door. The sound of my mother pounding on the solid wood was immediate. "Trinity, you let us in. You cannot." I turned the deadbolt. Thunk! I turned to the two officers, who were now standing awkwardly in my warm, cinnamon-scented living room. "I apologize for this," I said. "You have been lied to. You are being used as tools of harassment." "Ma'am," the other officer said, "those are strong allegations." I did not raise my voice. I simply unfolded the document in my hand and placed it on my new coffee table, right next to a stack of photography books. "This," I said, "is a temporary restraining order. It was approved and signed by Judge Alistair Miller last week. It explicitly forbids Victor Jacobs, Lorna Jacobs, Bryce Jacobs, and Tessa Jacobs from coming within 500 feet of my person, my place of employment, or this residence." The officers stared at the document. They saw the seal. They saw the signatures. Their entire demeanor changed. The confused civil standby posture vanished, replaced by a cold, legal sharpness. "Ma'am," the first officer said, his voice now grim, "we were not made aware of this." "Of course you were not," I said. "They brought you here to intimidate me. They are, as you can see, in direct violation of this order." The pounding on the door continued. "We know you are in there. Tell her to open the door. Officers." "And," I said, raising my voice just slightly, "I have a witness." The kitchen door, which led to my small dining nook, swung open. Marin Cole stepped out, holding a glass of wine. She was dressed in a comfortable cashmere sweater. "Good morning, officers," she said, smiling brightly. "Merry Christmas Eve. I am Marin Cole, Ms. Jacobs' legal counsel. I was just here enjoying some breakfast with my client, but I am, as you can see, a direct witness to this blatant, premeditated violation of a court order." The trap snapped shut. The two officers looked at each other. They understood, instantly, how badly this had just gone for the people on my porch. They had been brought here by the plaintiffs, and had now become witnesses for the defendant. "Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Cole," the older officer said, touching the brim of his hat, "we will handle this, immediately." He walked to the front door and unlocked it. He pulled it open. My family nearly fell inside. "Finally!" Lorna shrieked. Are you arresting her? Ma'am, the officer said, his voice an absolute booming command that stopped her cold. You are in direct violation of a legally binding restraining order. You, your husband, your son, and your daughter are ordered to leave these premises immediately. The blood drained from my mother's face. What? What order? We are her family. You are to remove yourselves from this property. If you ever come here again, if you approach Ms. Jacobs at her work, or if you contact her in any way, this temporary order will be upgraded to a permanent one, and you will be arrested for aggravated harassment. Victor's face went purple. This is a misunderstanding. She is the one. There is no misunderstanding, sir, the second officer said, his hand now resting on his belt. You need to leave, now, back to your vehicle. They stood there, frozen, their grand plan, their final, desperate Christmas gambit, had just exploded in their faces. Then, my father did something that proved, beyond all doubt, their complete disconnection from reality. He held up his hand, gurgling. Wait, Trinity, he said, his voice a desperate rasp. He fumbled in his cheap coat pocket and pulled out a wrinkled white envelope. This is just a mistake. We have an agreement, a way to fix all this, a way to be a family again. He pushed past the officer, shoving the envelope into my hand. I looked at it. It was a standard business envelope. My name was not on it. Marin stepped up beside me. The officers waited. My family waited. They were all staring at me. They thought this was it, the peace treaty, the white flag. I opened the envelope. I pulled out the single folded piece of paper. It was not a letter of apology. It was not a check for the legal fees they owed me. It was not a Christmas card. It was a legal document, a financial power of attorney. It had been pre-filled out by a notary. It listed all their known debts, the delinquent accounts, the credit cards, the judgment for my legal fees. It was a document authorizing me, Trinity Jacobs, to assume full legal and financial responsibility for all of it. All it needed was my signature. They had not come here to apologize. They had not come here to make peace. They had come here, on Christmas Eve, with police officers, to try to intimidate, harass, and legally trap me into becoming their bank again. I looked at the signature line, waiting for my name. I looked up at my father's desperate, hopeful, greedy face. I placed the document back on the coffee table. No, I said. It was the quietest, heaviest word in the world. No, my father whispered. No, I repeated. Now get off my property. It was Bryce who broke. The reality of their final, total defeat hit him. You! He screamed, his voice cracking. You did this. You ruined us. You destroyed this family. You tore us all apart. You selfish. Bryce, a quiet voice said. Dylan. He stepped forward from the back of the pack. He looked pale and tired, and so much older than 21. He grabbed his brother's arm. Bryce, stop. It is over. Just let's go. He pulled his brother back, off the porch. My father stared at the power of attorney form on my table, as if he could not comprehend it was still unsigned. My mother was just silently weeping. The performance over, the reality setting in. Dylan pulled them all away, down the walkway, toward their car. They were almost to the sidewalk when Tessa stopped. She turned around. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated venom. Are you happy? She called out, her voice echoing in the cold morning air. Are you finally happy? Trinity? Ruining everyone's Christmas? I hope you are. I stood in the doorway of my own home. I looked past her, at the light on the lake. I did not ruin Christmas, Tessa, I said. My voice was calm, and it carried, I just stopped funding an unjust tradition. She had no reply to that. She just stared, then turned and ran to the car. The officers nodded to me. Have a safe holiday, ma'am, the older one said. Thank you, officers. You too. I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. The The thunk was the last sound of my old life. The silence that filled the house was warm. Marin Cole walked over and picked up the 2 wine glasses from the counter. She handed one to me. "Well handled, Trinity," she said. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Marin." I put on music, soft, classical guitar. I walked over to my little tree and touched the brass key ornament. I picked up my phone. I had one last message to send. I texted Uncle Gordon. "Gordon, I just wanted to say thank you, again, for your honesty this past year. It made all the difference in the world. Merry Christmas to you and your family." I sipped my wine. A moment later, my phone buzzed. "Merry Christmas, Trin, you earned it." I looked out the window. The knot, the last tangled, painful, legal, and emotional knot, was finally cut. The boundary was secure. The law was on my side. My new life, the one I had built from the ruins of the old, was finally, truly beginning, and it was beginning right here, on Christmas. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to know where you are listening from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Do not forget to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.